Thank you.
Just so you're singing.
Okay, so just so everyone is aware, we're going to have a live studio talk show here, 20 minutes content where Soledad is leading the conversation, so just follow her lead. And also now you're 3 people on stage, so just respect everyone's time to, have the time to get your water message out. After the 20 minutes, we stop broadcasting online, but we invite the audience to ask questions or comments and so on. Any questions or clarification?
When they're talking, should I be facing them? Or do you want me to? What's the best?
You can face the person you're talking to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So mostly Soledad or...
Yeah. It's mostly Soledad's going to ask you a question, and then she's going to give the question to whoever is going to...
Got it. Okay.
Yeah? All right, cool. Thanks.
Warm welcome to this live studio talk show during World Water Week. Welcome to everyone here on site with us, and also a heartfelt welcome to everyone joining online. This next session, we're gonna dive in and learn a lot and explore about product sustainability as the final frontier in water's net zero journey. And to do that, I'm delighted to have real experts with me on stage. And before we dig in more to the issues, I would love you to introduce yourself shortly.
Thank you, Soledad, and thank you, Siwi, for having us. My name is Stephanie Smith, and I'm the Director of Global Product Sustainability at Xylem.
Hi, Soledad. Thank you for having me here. I am Carlos Diaz. I am from Peru. I am a consultant to development organizations like the World Bank, United Nations, and I have also been working for the International Water Association. Thank you.
Hi, it's nice to be here. Thank you, Soledad, for having us today. My name is Alexis de Kerkhove, and I am Senior Director for Client Sustainability, also working at Xylem. So it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, all of you. Many organizations across different sectors are committing to net zero journeys. And you at Xylem, you have been working at Xylem for 7 years?
Yes.
Now, yeah.
Yes.
And all of you are experts on these issues, but you're really also an expert when it comes to product sustainability. But maybe if we just start by introducing like an overall, like why is product sustainability so important when it comes to achieving net zero targets?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that question. So I think of product sustainability really as the environmental impact that our products have on the environment. So when we start talking about reducing, mitigating climate change, when you're a manufacturer like Xylem, you have to think about your products when you think about a net zero journey and what is the impact of our whole portfolio of products. And we started diving into that question and looking at Xylem's overall carbon impact, and quite surprisingly learned that over 95% of our carbon emissions are in our product portfolio. And even more surprising than that was that it's not just how we make the products. 96% of that is in how people use our products.
Yeah. And just because I'm like following you so much, and also everyone that maybe are not super familiar with Xylem products, what kind of products are we talking about?
Good question. Thank you. So we make a lot of technologies that are used all across the water cycle. If you use water, there's a good chance it probably touched a Xylem product on its way to you. But the products that are most energetically costly, the ones that use the most energy, are typically our pumps, our mixers, things that are used in the treatment and delivery of water.
Okay.
So those are the products that are really having this very large carbon impact for us.
Okay. No, with you. Thank you. And were you, maybe when I asked that question, you lost something else that you were going to say.
No, I was just trying to make the point that, it's because of how people use these very energy hungry products
Yeah.
that we've come to realize that if we're going to reduce our carbon emissions, we have to form a partnership with our customers and our clients because it's really not about how we make the products, it's about how the products are used.
By the clients.
That's
Yes.
right. So that partnership becomes really important.
Okay, thank you. That leads me
you.
to you, Alexis, because you work with client sustainability in Europe,
Correct.
and you also are you have a lot of knowledge and passion when it comes to like what are both the possibilities, but also the hurdles when it comes to like translating the ambitions of net zero targets to actually results. Could you share with us?
Absolutely, and
Yeah.
thank you for the question. When we talk about net zero, we talk about climate mitigations for the water sector. And
Yeah.
the reason why we are so attached at driving or helping our customers or partnering with them to meet or commit to those targets and meet their objective is because if climate change is the cause, all the impacts of climate change will be translated into water. Water droughts, water flooding, and it is critical for the water sector.
Let me just pause here and
Please.
rewind you. I was like, what did you actually say now? Like all the impact. Say that again.
If climate change is a cause,
A coast. Yeah.
the
A
cause of a
cause.
problem.
Yeah, the
cause of-
cause of now, because I think in pictures, I was thinking of a coast. But you were saying
cause of a
the
problem,
yeah, okay, now I'm with you.
then all the impacts of that climate change
Yeah.
will be translated into
Into water.
too little water, too much water, or impacting of access to drinking water and sanitations, to floating migrations into different regions.
Yeah.
So that's why the core of what we're aiming at doing here is supporting and partnering with clients to meet or to commit. So you asked me about hurdles. Over the last week at the conference, we have learned that there are really 5 critical pillars to make a net zero commitment. We're talking about a mindset. It's really important because it's all about people. People are at the source of this change. Government is the second one, and it's critical to have a government really implied driving the change. Then, of course, we look at investments availabilities, which is, of course, nothing is possible without money.
Yeah.
And then technologies and collaborations, integrations of all those stakeholders, and the technology we are supporting here. But the problem is, when we don't have a governmental mandate, all the net zero commitment today are volunteering from really progressive people who have that mindset or have access to funds or have access to technologies. So now the biggest hurdles for those volunteers or for those who are not yet volunteer.
But also just to exemplify, those volunteers, are they, for example, your clients?
Yes.
And Xylem is also a volunteer? We're not all just like, but just to
yes.
give,
In our
and
commitment,
also,
yes.
yeah, to tie it up to like how
And-
you're working with product sustainability with
And when I talk
clients.
about clients, I look mostly at water utilities who are responsible to deliver public services of water access and sanitation. And those who not yet have committed, mostly it's because, and they have really, really good reason, they are struggling at delivering those public services of giving you open access to
Yeah.
water and sanitation. It's not always free, but it's needed. Also, they have to maintain a crumbling infrastructure that they inherited from generations over. And then finally, they have to face a very unforecasted future, unplanned futures. Risks are coming forward. They don't know how to build that answers. And so I think that net zero is hard to be, is perceived, the big hurdle is that it's perceived as an additional objective on top of their obligations. And that is something that we need all to work on by
Yeah.
saying, I think, that net zero is a sideline objective, or no, maybe not zero, but the best step forward is to define where is the best progress that I can make to reduce my own operational emissions
Yeah.
within my system or my organization.
Okay. I have so many questions now, but also
We have
just to
answers.
clarify. That's wow. That's so beautiful to hear. But just to also to clarify there, where you're like, because you were also mentioning the importance of mindset.
Correct.
And when you're talking, of course, it's in one way it's good when you volunteer to do something, but you have to also realize what are the benefits of us engaging and also maybe investing in it. And then also, like you were saying, it's like so much of the it's linked to the products. It's like how to make sure I use the products in a way that contribute. What are the upsides to? What are the positive things?
Well, and I think it's really important for people to understand that there are a lot of things we could do to use these products better.
Yeah.
And so one of the things we've been talking about at Xylem is our digital transformation, for example, is a real enabler. So don't just buy a pump and think about that holistic application and how you're really going to use that pump. And can we as a supplier give you additional tools? We think a lot about digital tools. That pump doesn't need to run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It really only needs to run a fraction of that. And through digital enablement, we can help people use the technology much more efficiently. And that's one of the ways that, we can help our clients operate more sustainably.
You can help or you're helping.
We are helping.
We're
Yeah, good.
We're definitely
because
doing
I'm
it.
like, it's like we need to. You're doing
We
it
can
now.
help the ones who don't realize it
Absolutely.
yet,
Okay,
though.
good.
There
That's
are-
good.
there
But
are
it's like,
clients-
please tell me you're helping.
Yes, well, because like Alexi said, a lot of these folks are just trying to deliver the water.
Yeah.
They're not even thinking about this yet. And so this just feels like another obligation to them. But it's really something that we can help them make gains now.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. And also now to invite to hear from you, Carlos. You're not working at Xylem. Maybe
No.
you're cooperating with them. I don't.
Right.
Yeah, you are. You're like, yeah, right. But you bring also like from your experience, like a perspective from the South. What do you think is important to highlight, or what are your contributions now?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Yeah, as Alexis rightly said, utilities are responsible to provide one of the most basic human rights, access to clean water and sanitation, right? But you know that is, unfortunately, that is not the reality in many parts of the world. In many parts of the world, let's say, as we say, in the global south, utilities are struggling to reach universalization of the service. So they are not providing the service to all the population, let alone a good quality service, right? And so for them, maybe it seems like it is not a priority. For them, it is more important now to understand what they can do, actually, for instance, in terms of start understanding where the emissions are, what are the opportunities that they have, even like simple things for utilities in rich economies, like, for instance, to calculate emissions, right? Not even committing to reduce emissions, but simply to calculate emissions. For instance, now I am working with a project of the World Bank, the new IBNet, and we are already starting conversations with UN SDG to see how to incorporate climate-oriented indicators to this platform for utilities in the global south to start capturing information about emissions and maybe in the future commitments. And that is a good way to start like pushing for this, for utilities in the south also to think more about this, right?
Thank you. And coming back to like how you're working with clients, Alexis, and with this both possibilities but also challenges to make sure that you actually, because also just to clarify, it feels sometimes it's like the rhetorics and the policies are here and reality is here, and there's like a lot of things there in between. There are challenges that we actually don't talk about that are like in the way. What would you say is the most important things, like the barriers? And you mentioned it before, but like working with clients, how do you making it more accessible and possible? And also, what's the awareness that sometimes is lacking when it comes? Because it's like we simplify things, but there are things that
What is important to consider is that everybody is at a different step in the journey. All maturities, even for the global north and the Western world where we are all dealing with a lot, people have different maturity within climate mitigation.
Yeah.
And the right approach from all solution suppliers and supporters are to adapt the response to where the peoples are in their journey. And so when we talk about the least mature, it's important to address what they can do as a step forward. So become more aware of their emissions is critical. And so we talk about carbon accounting, getting in the perceptions of how much is your footprint as an organization. But also,
And just also to get like into the details, when with your products, do you always incorporate, or like what is the incentive for the clients and the users to track it? Do you make it, I mean, both that you make it easier, but do you have other methods to make sure that they do it?
to track the product? Or what,
No,
what
to
exactly?
track the emission.
Oh, the emission. No, no, absolutely. So, yes, and emissions are, based on the maturity, you will see that emissions are firstly associated with how much energy is being used.
Yeah.
So becoming conscious of energy efficiencies and the source of that energy, because most around the world is coming from fossil fuel origin,
Yeah.
right? There's only 20% of available renewable energy globally, so there is a shortage for sure. It's mostly fossil. But as you migrate towards more maturity, then becoming aware that utilities in the treatment of wastewater have massive process gas emissions, meaning there are greenhouse gas, that are coming from the process itself, like nitrous oxides and methane, or even CO2. And so becoming aware of that and starting analyzing, monitoring, metering, and then taking actions to mitigating. Those are all the steps forward that utilities can do to make progress. And we are there on this journey to come with solutions, but we don't have them all. So we promote co-development. We
Okay.
try to be close to them and develop solutions that work for the situations they're tackling.
Okay. And also, again, that you're saying that these are things that they can do, but there are also things that many are doing, that you're co-developing and doing
Correct.
now. Okay,
Absolutely.
good. Just
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
what would you like to add?
Well, something that Alexi said that's really important is tracking and accounting for the carbon emissions is still a developing art. And that's one of the hardest things. So I think, today we're kind of lucky in that people are paying attention to their energy costs. And so that kind of builds in the awareness and paying attention to that. But as a practice, the accounting for the amount of carbon that is embedded in a product, the amount of carbon that is emitted when you use the product, we have principles that we all go by, but it is still a bit of a developing practice. And so I would definitely call upon the industry, call upon other vendors like Xylem, to really start influencing those practices and saying, this is the way we think we should do it in our industry. We need what are called product category rules that help us define how you are going to calculate the carbon in a product. And when we can really measure that, we can start really making more sustainable products.
Carlos, comment on that.
Well, I think that, of course, there are a lot of hurdles, but also an opportunity to work in emerging markets, because as we know, in many of these countries, still we need to build a lot of infrastructure, and of course, the idea is not to repeat the mistakes of the past, right? But the good news is that I think they will not be, of course, they need to increment access, to increase access, to reach universalization of the service. But the financiers that are going to finance this new infrastructure, they are going to try to prevent that they simply go and commit the same mistakes that in the past. For instance, there are new policies now for development banks like the World Bank that starting this year to 2023, any new project any sector, but let's focus on the water sector, any new
Yeah.
project have to be Paris aligned, right? They have to prove that it is not contravening the Paris Agreement, and that is also creating another push for emerging economies to really go into new technologies, but of course that they have to be affordable, and that is also that Xylem and other vendors also have to consider to produce, innovate, and to produce low-tech technology that still has is very efficient in terms of GHG emission reductions. Yeah.
Okay. Alex, do you have any?
You know, I think that we covered many of the topics. One last thing that I really believe deeply is that the water sector is very homogeneous. Everybody's doing water treatment in the same way. We are a conference here where we meet exactly the same people. The water sector is small and homogeneous. So it has an opportunity to make a difference by moving forwards with climate mitigations along with the adaptations that is needed to keep providing the services that we have. The private sector has a role to play. The public sector has an engagement to take.
Yes, indeed. And I think many of the things have been mentioned, but also to give you the final, like the closest remark for this part of the session, at least, Stephanie. What do you see is like the vision, and how does Xylem want to make sure to in one way participate in leading the way of
Yeah, I think, we really are striving to be a model of excellence for our commitment to net zero, and we've really called upon the whole sector to join us in that. And the water sector, honestly, is very, very progressive on net zero commitment. But I think Carlos is bringing a really important perspective here, because right now a lot of this is being driven in the EU. That's where we're getting that regulatory driver. I think we as a sector have to really start thinking more globally about how we're going to tackle this. And I think the Global South perspective is very important on this point.
Okay, that's a very good way to round up this this dialogue. Carlos looks happy with the comments.
Always smiling.
So that's good. And thank all of you for also like sharing light, and also it's a complex topic, at least for me, that it's
It
not an
really is.
expert, but you did it in a very understandable and concrete way, which I also think it's important to include more in the process, but still without losing the technical like brilliance that is needed to drive this transformation forward. So thank you so much, and thank you for everyone that joined us online.
Soledad.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Soledad.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.